Hello, welcome back to my channel, guys. My name is Chioma. If you didn't know, I'm so happy that you're here and you stumbled upon my video. Welcome. Welcome. Today I'm actually going to be talking about a rather interesting topic that actually really has driven a lot of the research that I've done so far. And we're going to be talking about the difference between regular stress and traumatic stress. Especially those who have experienced trauma, regular stress can sometimes mirror or trigger those same feelings that a traumatic event or traumatic stress might have signaled in us. However, there is a difference between the two, and there's actually some type of stresses that are helpful that encourage us to be successful and accomplish our goals. So it's completely normal for us to magnify our own experiences as human beings, right? We feel like our experience is the most important, it's the most meaningful because we are human. We only get to live as ourselves. We don't ever get to be another human person in this lifetime. So our experience is going to feel like the most important. While we are able to handle stress just on a biological level, right? Our bodies are designed to be able to handle and manage stress. For instance, when we are in a situation of danger, the whole fight or flight response, that is a stress response, right? We're responding to potential threat in our environment and we're equipped to either fight, flight, fawn, freeze, whatever it is our body is going to do. We're responding to some form of imminent danger, and that's closely linked with anxiety, right? From a less clinical perspective, anxiety can be described as feelings of imminent danger, illogical feelings of imminent danger. That stress response is signaled and triggered. We feel worked up, we feel worried, we feel unsafe, possibly in situations that aren't constituting that type of response, or in situations where that is not necessary or warranted. That is kind of where anxiety can stir. I'm not saying this is the truth for everyone, right? And sometimes anxiety is a result of an actual unsafe environment, which can kind of borderline PTSD, but we're not going to talk about comorbidity and stuff like that today. We're not going there. But we are able to handle stress naturally as human beings, right? We are designed to conquer that. However, it becomes a slippery slope because regular stress, and we'll go ahead and hop into that definition, regular stress has an identifiable end. So that is the real main difference between traumatic stress and regular stress, right? Regular stress has an identifiable end. So what does that mean? So when I say that there are certain types of stress that are healthy for us because they have that imminent end. When we think about a deadline at work or a due date, right? That's something that provides a certain level of stress that we will eventually conquer. And once the due date has passed, once the deadline has passed, the stress is gone. We get the dopamine release. We are free from it and our body is able to return back to its homeostasis, right? The danger, the threat, the thing we needed to confront has already passed and moved on. So that feeling of stress goes with it. Same thing with things like moving. Moving houses is a very stressful thing. There's so many things to confront, so many things to pack, so many things to move. You're literally transporting your whole life from one location to another. Very stressful. However, once you move, the stress goes away. Of course, you have to unpack and everything, but once the task is done, it's done and the stress goes away. So that is the core difference. And primarily, our bodies are not designed to stay in that heightened arousal, that heightened state of stress for extended periods of time. That's where we have types of chronic illnesses and things like PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder, where post the event, right? After the event has happened, this perceived danger or actual danger, right, has occurred. There is stress after, right? There's still stress, or our bodies are still in this heightened state after the fact. Traumatic stress feels perpetual, and that is the difference. There is no resolve from the event or no perceived resolve of the event that was experienced. And trauma keeps us stuck, right? There is no resolve, so we can kind of find ourselves stuck in that same experience, reliving the same types of scenarios because of where trauma places us. And the lack of resolve is what keeps us there. Essentially, it crystallizes us in that stressful scenario that we experienced. So the thing that we endured, that stressful experience for an extended period of time or for however long, right? It creates this inability or just a difficulty in being able to relax after the event has taken place. Our bodies are still signaling to us that there is danger, that we are not safe. And that can create a lot of issues. Because there's no resolve, we then begin to see our life through this lens, right? This traumatic stress colors our experiences, especially in relationships. We're unable to fully open ourselves up because we are still stuck in that experience. It can halt development in a lot of different ways, keeping us from truly maturing at the same trajectory we might have had that event not taken place, or had there been effective resolve or treatment or healing after the event had taken place. I want you to think of soldiers that have gone to war. While I'm not condoning war or violence, just go with me, okay? They experienced a threat to their safety, a loss, an injustice so great that it was nearly impossible for their bodies to metabolize that experience. It couldn't break it down. It couldn't process it. It couldn't use the energy and fuel them, right? It was impossible, essentially, for their bodies to metabolize that experience. In this scenario, the soldiers are likely to be easily startled. Their stress is likely higher. Army veterans actually have one of the highest percentages of alcoholism. Alcohol is a depressant. It relaxes you. Release your inhibition. Feel the rain on your skin. Natasha Bedingfield, literally, alcohol does that. It's going to suppress your nervous system. It's going to relax you, which is difficult for those who have experienced traumatic stress to experience that relaxation, right? There's a correlation there between like the need for relaxation because our bodies do need it. Like we take the edge off. If a work day is stressful, it's normal for us to have a drink because alcohol is a depressant. I'm not going to say because like they go together, but it's logical. It makes sense, the process, like why people desire the feeling or the effects of alcohol, the excessively relaxed state that it produces. Or those of us who have experienced getting blackout drunk, you're so relaxed, you're so carefree that you can kind of do whatever. You're unaffected by whatever might have been constricting you in your sobriety or in your sober experience. Like that doesn't bother you. You got liquid courage. You're not trying to keep everything together in those moments. It's suppressing, let's say, your boundaries, your barriers, right? But back to the soldiers. Even though there was an identifiable end, maybe they came home from war and they're back into civilian life, there was still no resolve. And I don't even want to make this about military or soldiers or anything. There is still a stigma around mental health, right? There is still a stigma around therapy and all these things, especially with men. I don't have any data for you, but I can imagine like if society and the patriarchy is like asking men to show up in this macho state and you actually feel proud. A lot of times there's a lot of sense of like pride that comes with serving your country. You did this really cool, dangerous thing, regardless of what goes into it, because we're not going to talk about the potential brainwashing and all that because I'm aware of those things, right? Don't chew me up in the comments because of what I'm talking about. Anyway, and after they come home, I would imagine they would want to feel this like sense of pride, this sense of dignity for what they did. And that might even be difficult. There is a wound that occurs, right? Having to watch people die is not a normal or natural thing for the human experience. Even as far as like the way that we see and experience these atrocities in our everyday life and our everyday experience through social media and through our phones, like that is not normal. We are not meant to see such gruesome and drastic things happening to other human beings so readily available. And this is really one of the only generations where this has been a thing. Children born in 2004 have never grown up without social media. I don't want to say they didn't play outside because I'm sure some kids did. Playing outside and having that stage of where you're able to just be free. I'm going on a tangent. Let me get back to the point. There was no resolve for this trauma. However, oftentimes re-experiencing that hurt is not the way to heal it, right? Reprocessing, reliving that traumatic event is not how we start to address or confront ourselves when we're in that free state or when we were in that traumatized or heightened stress state. So it starts with establishing a sense of safety, ironically, right? We're talking about solutions, right? If we're dealing with perpetual stress or post-traumatic stress or of anything of the sort, it's like the key is to find a place that's safe, something that you can trust, creating some type of safety within your life so that that can be your anchor, whether it's a person, whether it's a routine. Sometimes routine can be very helpful to allow us to feel safe because it's something we can rely on. It's something we feel like we have control over. It's something that we can trust. And that's the most important thing, right? Feeling like we can trust something, we can lean on something so that we can begin to build from there, right? Feeling a sense of empowerment, feeling a sense of control, feeling a sense of safety so that that signal of distress, of danger can be combated by this routine, by this feeling of safety. So it starts there, whatever that means. If you like school and you're an academic and you love to learn, that can be your sense of safety, right? You create your school schedule. You're able to rely on that. If your home environment is not safe, you can find other elements or other places in your life. And it's going to look different for everyone, but establishing something in your life that is safe. If it's talking about your feelings or your experiences, that's safe for you, that helps you metabolize, that helps you move forward, right? Or that helps you start to process or to reintroduce that feeling of safety or feel it somewhere, somehow. That is important because that is how we start to combat our mind to then hack the body so that we can have this feeling of relaxation. We can experience the more relaxed states. But also, ultimately, this video was meant to highlight the difference between stressors because a lot of us sometimes react to regular stress as if it were traumatic stress, right? Moving houses makes us feel like we are unsafe, like we're in danger, when in reality, our routine is just shaken up. And that would be a call for us to look at the stability and the level of safety we feel in our own lives, the level of safety we even feel within ourselves. T. It's important to examine those things. If regular stressors are not able to be metabolized properly, if traveling, if moving houses, if a deadline causes you so much stress that we're not able to metabolize it, I think it might be more of a signal. I don't want to say it's specifically the reason or the correlation to you having some broader disorder, but I think it is important to acknowledge and say that this might be signaling to me that I may not feel safe or confident or secure in other parts of my life. And once you're introduced with stress of some kind, you're all of a sudden thrown completely off your rocker, right? Our bodies are designed to handle stress. In this evolutionary period of the human race, we do have stresses that weren't really issues that we've had in previous evolutionary periods, I'd say. Like we have things like work stress. The 40-hour work week is barely even 100 years old. It may be less, maybe more, I don't know. But it's not that new for the human race, right? So having something like a deadline is different on a day-to-day basis or a weekly basis. That's different. A lot of our human experience previously was largely more therapeutic as far as things like physical activity were ingrained in us. Like when cars didn't exist, like people would ride horses, and that's an athletic thing. And walking by foot or rowing things, picking up heavy things and moving them and transporting them were a part of everyday human activities. And those things have been removed, and we've embraced more of a convenience lifestyle, which I actually love my conveniences, don't get me wrong, but it takes some of those things that allow us to metabolize and get energy out from us, right? Those things aren't as readily incorporated into our lives anymore as they may have been in previous generations or time periods. There wasn't as much mental health support either. You could get yourself out into the yard and do some work. There were more therapeutic activities that were just commonplace for us to do. Needlepoint for women if we're wanting to separate it by gender, but things to put us in a flow state. All these different things that now have been automated. I'm not knocking those things. I actually love technology, and that's the way that we're going if humans are able to maintain it without ruining ourselves, but that's a different topic for a different day. But there's a big difference between traumatic stress and regular stress. And if you can hack it and start to view some of your problems like, okay, like I can identify the end of this experience, right? I'm really stressed about this project at work. However, I know that after the 25th, it will be over. That can sometimes improve productivity. It can sometimes improve your level of confidence. It can improve your way of approaching the issue just because you feel and you are able to see and identify the end, putting things into a broader perspective versus like feeling like you are in danger, right? I hope that this video was really informative for us and we were able to identify the differences between traumatic stress and regular stress. And if you have questions or even experiences you want to share, I'm more than happy to listen and engage. Feel free to shoot me a comment. I would love to hear about your experiences or how we might be sometimes overhyping ourselves up, right? Getting ourselves anxious because we think we are unsafe, and in reality it's just regular stress. Or if we actually may have some post-traumatic stress that hasn't been resolved, that maybe has come to an end as far as the experience, but hasn't come to an end as far as our feeling and our resolve with that situation. So thank you so much if you stayed to the end of this video. I look forward to seeing you all in my next one, and I hope that your life and world is looking real sexy. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you in my next video. Bye for now.